Welcome to Midnight Horrors. Dive into chilling tales and dark mysteries. Subscribe for more spine-tingling stories. Chapter 1: The Beginning of the Descent. During the winter of 1927-28, federal officials launched a covert investigation into the ancient seaport town of Innsmouth, Massachusetts. This small, decaying town, long known for its strange and sinister reputation, was the site of a series of raids and arrests that puzzled the public and left the town nearly deserted. The investigation culminated in the dynamiting and burning of numerous crumbling houses along the waterfront. Despite the secrecy, whispers of disease, concentration camps, and mysterious naval action spread, leaving those in nearby towns filled with dread and curiosity. The townsfolk of Innsmouth, known for their secretiveness, became even more elusive. I had never heard of Innsmouth until I was on a tour of New England, celebrating my coming of age. A chance conversation with a ticket agent led me to this cursed town, whose eerie reputation piqued my curiosity. The agent's hesitation and the local disdain for the place only fueled my desire to visit. As I arrived, I was struck by the town's desolate appearance. The decaying buildings, the lack of smoke from chimneys, and the eerie silence created an atmosphere of unease. The few people I saw moved with a furtive, almost unnatural gait, and their appearance was unsettling. Their bulging eyes, flat noses, and scaly skin gave them an inhuman look. Determined to learn more, I ventured deeper into the town. The streets were lined with dilapidated houses, many boarded up and abandoned. The air was thick with the stench of fish, and the overall atmosphere was one of decay and dread. Despite the unsettling sights and sounds, my curiosity drove me forward. Chapter 2: The Innsmouth Look. As I continued my exploration, I encountered more of the town's inhabitants. Their grotesque appearances and unsettling behavior added to the town's sinister reputation. Many had a strange, fish-like quality to their features, with bulging eyes that seemed never to close and skin that appeared almost scaly. The locals were unwelcoming, their stares filled with suspicion and hostility. They spoke in low, guttural tones, and their movements were slow and deliberate. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched from every shadowed corner and darkened window. My wanderings took me to the waterfront, where the stench of rotting fish was overpowering. The docks were in disrepair, and the few boats that remained were old and decaying. As I stood there, I noticed a group of fishermen casting their nets into the dark waters. Their movements were mechanical, almost robotic, and their eyes never left me. Feeling increasingly uneasy, I decided to seek refuge in one of the town's few establishments still in operation, the Gilman House, a decrepit hotel that seemed to be the only place offering lodging. The clerk, a gaunt man with the Innsmouth look, eyed me with suspicion as I checked in. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in danger, surrounded by people who were not entirely human. Chapter 3: The Horror Unveiled. That night I was plagued by nightmares. I dreamt of strange, amphibious creatures rising from the depths of the ocean, their glowing eyes filled with malice. I awoke in a cold sweat, the sound of the waves crashing against the shore echoing in my ears. Determined to uncover the truth, I decided to explore the town further. My inquiries led me to an old drunkard named Zadok Allen, who was known for his wild tales and eccentric behavior. With the promise of a bottle of whiskey, I convinced him to share what he knew about Innsmouth. Zadok's story was both horrifying and fascinating. He spoke of ancient, otherworldly beings that lived beneath the sea and demanded human sacrifices in exchange for wealth and prosperity. These beings, known as the Deep Ones, had made a pact with the townsfolk, resulting in the grotesque transformation of many of Innsmouth's inhabitants. As I listened, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The strange appearances, the hostility, and the eerie atmosphere all pointed to a dark and sinister secret hidden beneath the waves. The Deep Ones had infiltrated Innsmouth, turning it into a breeding ground for their kind. Chapter 4: The Descent into Madness. With each passing day, the horror of Innsmouth grew more tangible. I began to notice subtle changes in myself, a lingering scent of fish, a slight bulging of my eyes. The transformation was slow but undeniable, and I realized with growing terror that I was becoming one of them. Desperate to escape, I sought out the federal agents who had conducted the raids. They confirmed my worst fears, revealing that the entire town was under quarantine due to the presence of the Deep Ones. There was no escape from the curse that had befallen me. As the days turned into weeks, I became increasingly paranoid. The townsfolk, sensing my fear, became more aggressive. I was chased through the streets, barely managing to evade capture. The line between reality and nightmare blurred, and I found myself questioning my sanity. In a final, desperate act, I decided to confront the source of the horror. I made my way to Devil Reef, the place where the Deep Ones were said to dwell. As I stood on the edge of the reef, the water began to churn, and the monstrous beings rose from the depths. Chapter 5: The Final Confrontation. The confrontation with the Deep Ones was a nightmare come to life. Their glowing eyes and grotesque forms filled me with a terror unlike anything I had ever experienced. They spoke in guttural tones, demanding that I join them beneath the waves. Refusing to succumb to their demands, I fought back with every ounce of strength I had left. The battle was fierce and desperate, with the creatures surrounding me on all sides. Just as I was about to be overwhelmed, a group of federal agents arrived, their weapons blazing. The ensuing chaos was a blur of gunfire, screams, and the roars of the Deep Ones. The agents managed to drive the creatures back into the sea, but at a great cost. Many lives were lost, and the town of Innsmouth was left in ruins. In the aftermath, I was taken into custody by the federal agents. They explained that I would be placed in quarantine, monitored closely for any signs of further transformation. The horror of Innsmouth was far from over, but for now, I had survived. Chapter 6: The Aftermath. In the days that followed, I was kept under close watch by the federal agents. The transformation had slowed, but the fear of becoming one of the Deep Ones remained. My days were filled with medical examinations and psychological evaluations, as the agents sought to understand the extent of the curse that had befallen me. The town of Innsmouth was declared a quarantine zone, with all remaining inhabitants relocated to secure facilities. The buildings were demolished and the harbor was sealed off. The government worked tirelessly to erase all evidence of the Deep Ones and their influence. Despite their efforts, the horror of Innsmouth remained a constant presence in my mind. The dreams of the monstrous beings continue to haunt me, and I struggle to come to terms with the events I had witnessed. The line between reality and nightmare had become irrevocably blurred. As I sat in my cell, I realized that the true horror of Innsmouth was not the creatures themselves, but the knowledge that such beings existed. The world was far more sinister and mysterious than I had ever imagined, and the darkness that lurked beneath the surface was a reminder of the fragility of. Chapter 7. The Endless Nightmares. As the weeks turned into months, the nightmares grew more vivid and terrifying. Each night I found myself back in Innsmouth, surrounded by the grotesque forms of the Deep Ones. Their glowing eyes and guttural voices haunted my every dream, and I woke each morning in a cold sweat. The federal agents, despite their efforts to reassure me, could not dispel the fear that had taken root in my mind. I became increasingly paranoid, convinced that the Deep Ones were still watching me, waiting for the right moment to reclaim their prize. The isolation and constant surveillance took a toll on my sanity. I began to see shadows moving in the corners of my cell, and the whispers of the Deep Ones echoed in my ears. The fear of transformation consumed me, and I struggled to maintain my grip on reality. In a desperate attempt to find solace, I turned to the ancient texts and forbidden stones that spoke of the Deep Ones and their dark gods. The knowledge I gained only deepened my horror, revealing the true extent of the ancient pact that had cursed Innsmouth. Chapter 8. The Final Revelation. In the end, the truth was more horrifying than I could have ever imagined. The ancient texts revealed that the Deep Ones were not the only beings lurking beneath the waves. There were older, more powerful entities, gods of unimaginable power and malevolence, who sought to reclaim the world for their own. The Deep Ones were merely the harbingers, the vanguard of a greater invasion that threatened to engulf the entire world. The pact made by the townsfolk of Innsmouth was just one of many, and the influence of these dark gods was spreading. With this knowledge, I realized that my fate was sealed. There was no escaping the curse that had befallen me, and the transformation would eventually claim me. The only question was when. As I sat in my cell, waiting for the inevitable, I knew that the true horror was not the transformation itself, but the knowledge that the darkness was far greater and more insidious than I had ever imagined. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to our channel for more spine-chilling stories.